The opinions expressed in this show are the views of the host and not necessarily that of WTRW, 94.3 The Talker, or the Bold Gold Media Group.
The following presentation is paid for by Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate, who is solely responsible for its content. Portions transcribed.
All Century 21 real estate offices are independently owned and operated.
Hi, I'm Jackie Reddy, broker of Century 21 Jack Reddy Real Estate. Welcome to the Real Estate Roundtable on 94.3 The Talker. I'm here with my co-host, husband, fellow realtor, Pat Devaney.
Good morning, Jackie. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
We have with us Margot McDonald, president of 1031 Corp., who's calling in from Collegeville, PA. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to our discussion with you today, Margot.
I am looking forward to it as well.
Thank you. We're here every Saturday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 11:30 a.m. where we talk real estate. We have a full-time real estate office with many extraordinary realtors who've been listing, selling, and appraising real estate for 50-plus years.
During the week, feel free to email us with any questions you have at questions@jruddy.com. That's questions@jruddy.com, or you can give us a call at 570-344-6724. And when you go to jruddy.com, click on the webcam tab, and you get a live view of Dunmore Corners, and you never know what you're going to see.
View our listings, search the MLS listings, and listen to archive radio shows by going to mobile-friendly-jruddy.com. That's JRUDDY.com. And on the radio tab, we also have all the popular podcast apps that we feature the radio program on. And remember, we are all over social media: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. Okay, Margot McDonald, president of 1031 Corp., calling in from Collegeville, Pennsylvania. Please tell me about who you are, your company, and what you do.
Sure, Jackie. I have served as what's called a qualified intermediary for almost the last 29 years. A qualified intermediary is the necessary party that coordinates all the details of a 1031 exchange. I have been doing this for almost 3 decades, and educating people on the benefits of 1031 exchanges is the absolute most favorite thing for me to do.
You're based out of Collegeville, Pennsylvania. Are you able to do 1031 exchanges for people out of the state, or just you contain this to Pennsylvania?
We can facilitate an exchange anywhere in the country. Where you are located or the property you're buying or selling does not matter. We can take care of it for you.
Exactly. What is a 1031 exchange? I've heard of this word floating around, and just do a 1031, and it seems to be nobody really knows anything about it. It's like the great mystery.
Well, a 1031 exchange actually gets its name from Section 1031 in the Internal Revenue Code, and it provides that no gain or loss will be recognized on the exchange of property held for business use or investment. Simply put, it is a way for the seller of any type of business use or investment property to defer the gain when they are selling and reinvesting in another business use or investment property. It's much like a sale followed by a purchase, but it's linked together by the necessary paperwork and completed within the necessary time periods. It's actually a really easy process, especially when you're working with a qualified intermediary that will walk you through each step of that transaction.
Who is a qualified intermediary? Is a realtor, is an attorney, is an accountant, your uncle, your father, your brother, who is a CPA.
I got a cousin Sal. He can help me out.
All right, there you go.
But there's not many people that you mentioned in that group that would actually work, except maybe the cousin Sal. But the qualified intermediary is an independent party used to facilitate that exchange. And Qualified is defined as someone who is not an agent of the taxpayer or a close party. So your real estate professional, your attorney, your accountant, your financial advisor, any one of those professionals that you've worked with in the last 2 years is prohibited from being your qualified intermediary. A close relative, an employee, or a partner, anyone who you may have some control over also is prohibited from being a qualified intermediary. So it's really someone who is an independent party to the transaction.
Okay, so when you say qualified, does that also do you require a license? Do you require education? What makes you qualified in that sense?
The crazy thing, Jackie, is the word qualified only has to do with our relationship to the taxpayer. So when it comes to looking for the right qualified intermediary for you, there's a couple of things that you could look for. The first is because our 1031 industry is largely unregulated, the 1031 industry, through its National Trade Association, the Federation of Exchange Accommodators, introduced a certified exchange specialist program back in 2003 to give you and your investor clients a way to evaluate qualified intermediaries. Those that hold that CES designation have demonstrated through independent third-party testing their knowledge of 1031 and its application. They're required to maintain 20 hours of continuing education every 2 years, and in order to sit for that exam, they had to have worked in the 1031 industry, facilitating exchanges for at least 3 full-time years.
Okay, so they have to have some sort of professional background, which is good and important because you said it's a simple process, but to me, it sounds complicated.
Well, you are right. While every exchange has all the same basic ingredients, every situation makes it a little bit different. Some are much easier than others, but there are much more complicated transactions that happen. But the bottom line is the underlying requirements are the same for every 1031 exchange.
Sounds like real estate.
Yeah. So you have
That's exactly right.
So you have to be involved way before this deal closes. You have to be in on the ground floor, right?
Ideally, yes, that is true. I usually suggest call your qualified intermediary anytime you have a question in the planning phase. People call me a year before they're thinking about doing anything just to learn more and to kind of start getting their ducks in a row. But once you have a signed contract with a buyer, there's a title company or a closing attorney that's working on preparing everything for your closing. That's the time when you'll want to get the qualified intermediary into play. We could initiate exchange all the way up to you calling me saying, hey, my client is in closing right now, and they changed their mind and they want to do a 1031 exchange. I can make that happen. But if you are walking to your car after closing and congratulating them on their sale, and they say, Jackie, you told me about 1031, I want to do it. It's too late. So we can do it all the way up to sitting at the closing table, but not afterwards. Ideally, they will reach out and initiate the exchange as soon as it goes under contract with the buyer.
Before we continue, I want to talk about Pennsylvania. There was just a big event that occurred. Let's talk about that and the meaning of the 1031 exchange within the state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's been a long time coming. So 1031 or Section 1031 is part of the federal tax code. So it defers your federal gain as well as your depreciation recapture, assuming you're buying another property that is eligible for depreciation. But when it comes to state income tax or state gain, every state is different. And all of the states with an income tax regime have either followed the federal tax code or they have adopted their own version of 1031, except the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So if you were a Pennsylvania resident selling a property anywhere, or a non-resident of Pennsylvania selling a property here in our Commonwealth, you would still have to pay the Pennsylvania state income tax. We're fortunate it's a flat rate of 3.07% for individuals, but you would still have to pay that, and you'd have to take the money out of your pocket to pay it, because if you would use your sale proceeds to pay it, you didn't have that money to reinvest in replacement property. And this year, as part of the Pennsylvania budget that was signed, Pennsylvania is finally going to adopt the federal code. So it will start to recognize 1031 beginning January 1 of 2023. It doesn't mean that if you started your exchange in 2022 and bought replacement property in 2023, you won't have to pay the tax. It only works if you sell your old property, which we refer to as a relinquished property, after January 1 of 2023.
So the closing must occur after January 1st, 2023.
Correct.
Okay.
All
Got
right.
it.
Now, I wanted to talk about something you were talking about at the closing. So the key to all of this is that if I take the money, there can be no 1031. Is that how it works?
You are correct that you cannot touch the sale proceeds if you are the exchanger. When you think about 1031, it's really based on the continuity of investment. You are shifting everything you had in property A to property B. So if you owned a property, let's say it sold for $500,000, and you had $200,000 of equity in it and a $300,000 mortgage. In order for you to defer the gain and maximize that deferral, you want to buy another property that's at least $500,000, and you want to put at least $200,000 of equity into it. So in that situation, you're just going to put all of your equity from the first property into the second property, and that will allow you to maximize your tax deferral. What happens is the qualified intermediary will work with the closing agent and ask the closing agent to wire those funds directly to an exchange account set up for the benefit of the exchanger. When working with 1031 Corp., we would set up the account 1031 Corp. For the benefit of Jackie Ruddy. And it would have Jackie's Social Security number attached to that. Jackie would be able to log onto the bank, see her account balance. At the end of the month, the interest would be posted, and she'll get a statement from the bank. And I like to call that direct deposit for the replacement property, because it's just sitting there waiting for the purchase of the replacement property. We can take the earnest money deposit out of that account, and then when you're ready to go to closing with your written authorization, we will wire all of those funds to the closing agent.
How big is 1031 Corp? How many people do you have working for you? How many offices do you have throughout the state?
1031 Corp has 30 employees. We have two offices, one in southeastern Pennsylvania in Collegeville. We also have an office on the West Coast in Central Oregon in a town called Bend, Oregon, a great outdoor resort area, beautiful, beautiful place. And we have a number of employees scattered across the country, but all of the transactions are handled out of those two offices. We do, in the last year or so, we've probably done about 2,000 exchanges. So we have a lot of experience across the country and are very familiar with all of the different closing practices and real estate practices, withholding requirements in various different states. Our team is very good and can handle that exchange anywhere in the country for you.
My head is spinning just thinking about it. I mean, I thought I had a lot to navigate and work through, but wow, all these states, you have to know things, different things, I'm sure. So was Pennsylvania the last state to
We sure were. We were the very last state. And I have gotten myself in a little bit of trouble because I've joked and said that Pennsylvania has finally come into the 20th century, and people have reminded me we're in the 21st century. And I've laughed and said, no, I really meant the 20th. When it comes to 1031, we're still a little behind the other 49 states.
Well, we were the last
we're getting
state,
there.
and you may or may not know this, but we were the last state with the COVID lockdowns, the last state to allow real estate to open and conduct business. We were shut down for 2 months because the state, the Commonwealth, did not feel that, the governor didn't feel that real estate was a priority or housing was...
Or it's not essential.
Yes,
But
housing was not essential.
You know what's essential? The liquor store is essential.
They did very well.
Yeah, they did great.
But we were, of course, we were very impacted by that shutdown of real estate as well, because we had a lot of clients that were looking to buy replacement properties, and were really struggling to find those properties during that time. Fortunately, IRS came out with some extensions that helped some clients out, but we still saw a record number of 1031s fail because of the inability to look for property during that time period.
Okay, there's certain time frames that we should talk about. There's a 45-day window. There's a 180-day window. What are these time frames? And they really seem like they're a little light. You have to do a lot of work within the 45 days, 180 days. Let's talk about that, please.
You are right. There are two timelines, and they both are running at the same time. They both begin the day you go to closing to transfer your property to the buyer. From that point on, you have 45 days to identify in writing to your qualified intermediary the properties you're interested in purchasing. And running at the same time, based on calendar days, not business days, but calendar days, you have 180 days to buy everything that you want to buy to complete your exchange. Now, when it comes to identifying, you don't need to have a property under contract, but you do have to buy something that you've identified. So, Jackie, you understand the crazy real estate market that we're in right now. You would be a little crazy to list a property that is not under contract. Even though the market is slowing down just a little bit, we know that if you identify a property before midnight today and it's not under contract, there's not a great chance that you're going to be able to put that property under contract. So I encourage people to get those properties under contract and to start looking really early in the process. So once you put that property under contract with a buyer, realistically, you have anywhere from 30 to 60 days until you close. Use that time to start looking for property. You can certainly put it under contract if you want, but as long as we schedule the closings, so your old property closes before your replacement property, that will all work just fine.
Tricky business, Margot.
It's much easier than you think. Once you go through the first exchange, you will think, why doesn't everybody do this?
Well, it's important to have someone like you involved in that transaction. With us today is Margot McDonald, president of 1031 Corp., calling in from Collegeville, PA. How does someone get in touch with you and your firm, please?
You could call us. I'll give our 800 number just because it's easier to remember, but it's simply 800-828-1031. So 800-828-1031. They can visit our website at 1031corp.com. And you could also email me at margo@1031corp.com. It's just MARGO at 1031corp.com. And if you call our office and I'm not available, any one of our exchange officers can certainly answer all of your questions, walk through your transaction, and make sure you understand all of the 1031 requirements.
Wonderful. Thank you, Margot. Pat, would you like to review a listing, please?
Yes, we have a very well-maintained 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. It's at 619 Electric Street in Scranton for $159,000. This lovely home sits on a 35 by 140 lot. It's got plenty of off-street parking. It's got a covered carport. It's got the white picket fence out front, a new vinyl white picket fence. The yard is fully fenced in, and this home has newer windows, a water heater, along with economical gas heat. DC, our producer over here, paid his oil bill. It was like $1,100, so I'd rather have natural gas than oil. That's just me. This cute home is just waiting for your personal touches. So if you're paying high rent and thinking of buying, take a look at 619 Electric Street in Scranton for $159,000, and that's listed by Cheryl Zinal of our office.
Thank you, Pat. Lancaster was ranked the number 1 small city.
Is it Lancaster? How do you say it, DC? Lancaster. Sorry, I'm only kidding.
I say Lancaster.
That's
because
fine.
I'm a cold cracker.
You can say whatever you want.
Well, how do you say it?
Lancaster.
Lancaster was ranked the number 1 small city in a Wallet Hub report. The personal finance site compared more than 1,300 cities with populations of 25,000 to 100,000 using 43 metrics across 5 categories: affordability, economic health, education and health, quality of life, and safety. Lancaster finished in the 99th percentile, representing the top 1% of cities in the report. The city had a total score of 71% and reported the lowest crime rate. And Wallet Hub gathered their data from the U.S. Census Bureau, FBI, TripAdvisor, County Health Rankings, and Yelp. I use Yelp.
It is lovely down there.
So these are the top 10 cities. Number 1, like I said, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. 2, Carmel, Indiana. 3, Fair Lawn, New Jersey. 4, Lexington, Massachusetts. 5, Brentwood, Tennessee. 6, Melrose, Massachusetts. 7, Zionsville, Indiana. 8, Needham, Massachusetts. 9, Portland, Maine. 10, Westfield, Indiana.
The only one I've ever been to is Lancaster.
It's very nice. We loved it,
It
right?
was lovely.
Okay, it's time for a short break. We'll be back in a short bit with more Real Estate Roundtable with Century 21 Jack Ready Real Estate on 94.3 FM The Talker. When considering to sell or buy a home, why choose Century 21 Jack Ready Real Estate? Let me tell you why. 70% of home buyers settle for the first agent they meet, and many regret it. 90% of home sellers hire an agent, but was it the right choice? Don't have agent remorse. I'm Jackie Ruddy, and I've been in and around the real estate business for most of my life. And at Century 21 Jack Ready Real Estate, we've been selling real estate for half a century. But we do not do it halfway. You deserve better than average. Average doesn't help you. We know it's all about you and what you need. Century 21 is the number 1 in brand awareness, is the most recognized name in real estate, and is the most respected in the industry. In this market, if you dream big, you need to move fast. So it makes perfect sense to contact Century 21 Jack Ready Real Estate, 570-344-6724, and visit jruddy.com. That's JRUDDY.com. Welcome back to the Real Estate Roundtable with Century 21 Jack Ruddy Real Estate on 94.3 FM The Talker. I'm Jackie Ruddy, and with Pat Devaney, my husband, fellow realtor.
And we're back with 1031s.
1031 Exchanges. We have Margot McDonald, president of 1031 Corp., calling in from Collegeville, Pennsylvania. Good morning again, Margot. Thanks for being here with us.
Good morning.
First half of the show, you talked about what a 1031 exchange is and the qualified intermediary. And I just like to say, once again, first half we talked about it, but the recognition of 1031 exchanges was included in the Pennsylvania legislation this year. It will take effect on exchanges initiated after January 1st, 2023. Pennsylvania was the only state in the country that did not allow 1031 tax deferrals prior to the recent legislation. And currently, sellers of Pennsylvania property and Pennsylvania taxpayers can defer the federal gain, but must pay Pennsylvania income tax on the gain. Until they close on a property, they have to close on it after January 1st, 2023 to take advantage of the 1031 exchange that's now allowed in Pennsylvania. Do I have that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay. So, Pat had a question.
Yes, I have a question. See, I am
New Yorker.
A New Yorker.
Suspicious by nature.
Oh, I was just going to say that. I'm eternally suspicious of everything.
And everyone.
And everyone. That's true. When I go to the garage from the house, I lock the house up. But how do I know? Now, I'm going to sell, say, I have a $500,000 property and then I want to buy another like one. I'm going to take a $500,000. I'm going to give you all of the proceeds. How do I know that that money's safe?
Well, Pat, there's a couple of things you could do. The first is when you're talking to a qualified intermediary, ask about how they hold your funds. Make sure that they are opening a segregated account or a separate account for each exchange that they're doing. And make sure that your name is attached to that account. So if you were to open an account with our company, we would set up the account 1031 Corp for the benefit of Pat, with Pat's Social Security number attached to it. There's nothing that says I have to do it like that. Some states, of the 50 states, I believe we have 11 or 13 states that have some requirements on how those accounts are set up. But other states would allow us to pool all of our clients' money. So that's why you want to make sure that you do a little bit of homework and make sure that a separate account is going to be set up for your fund and that there is something that identifies you as the party that we're holding those funds for the benefit of. The other thing that you could do is you could ask for what's called a qualified escrow account, which is a three-party written agreement between the exchanger, the qualified intermediary, and the bank that's holding the funds. And that agreement will require the qualified intermediary and the exchanger to each sign off authorizing the bank to move the funds. So the qualified intermediary is going to acknowledge that that they've confirmed that the request that the exchanger has made meets all the 1031 requirements and that those funds should be released. And the qualified intermediary has no control over the funds. They can't move them on their own. It requires the exchanger to sign off as well. And that way the bank will wire the funds to closing or the bank will cut a check and send the earnest money deposit. So that's an easy, inexpensive way to get additional security for your fund.
Okay. I like that. Now, say I have my money deposited into this account and I'm thinking about doing an exchange. What if I change my mind 5 days into this and I don't want to go through with the exchange and the money's sitting in that account? What happens then?
So, Pat, earlier we talked about that 45-day identification period, and that is really our first time period that we have to get through before funds can be released. So if you change your mind on day 5, or if you decide that you don't want to identify any properties, or you can't find something that meets all the requirements on your wish list, then on day 46, or the first business day after the end of the 45-day identification period, then we can release all of your funds. But if you're only on day 5 and you don't want to complete the exchange, I do have to hold the funds, unfortunately, until the end of the 45 days. It's not my rule, it's the IRS rules, and I can't do anything about that. And if you identify a property and then decide not to buy it, then I have to hold the funds until the end of the 180 days.
Oh.
Margot McDonald, president of 1031 Corp., calling in from Collegeville, PA. How does someone get in touch with you in 1031 Corp., please?
Sure. Somebody can call us. I'll give our 800 number. It's the easiest to remember. It's just 800-828-1031. Again, 800-828-1031. Or they can look us up on the web at 1031corp.com.
Thank you so much. Would you come back next week, Margot, because there's a lot more we'd like to discuss regarding 1031 exchanges, please.
I would love to.
Thanks so much. Pat?
Yes. We have a beautiful piece of land. It's lakefront property, over 1 acre at Lot 15 at Covington Lake Estates in Goldsboro for $99,000. This lot, this beautiful piece of land, sits on a 34-acre lake with privacy, beautiful views. You can fish, paddleboard, kayak, all on this non-motorboat lake. The on-site well approval is done. The highway occupancy permit has been obtained, and the public septic hookup is on file with Covington Township. There are very few lakefront lots in the area, so give us a call about Lot 15 in Covington Lake Estates, over 1 acre of lakefront land for $99,000, and that's listed by Connie Seagraves of our office.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Roundtable with Century 21 Jack Ready Real Estate. We're here next Saturday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on 94.3 FM The Talker.